Welcome, guys, to episode 8 of the Level X podcast. As always, this is your host, Young D. They call me David.
My name is Jesus.
Man, guys, and this episode is going to be filled with knowledge. I am excited to release all this knowledge to you guys, man. Last week I did let you guys down, I felt bad. I felt bad, Jesus. I felt bad that this week I'm coming back stronger and with a vengeance.
Okay.
Now, before we get started on this Level X podcast, we are sponsored this week. Let them know.
So we redeemed ourselves this week, and therefore we got a sponsorship once more by Instant Web Celeb. Instant Web Celeb has been assisting to revolutionize the online social world and has helped countless customers rank higher in status and fame across multiple platforms. Optimize and market your social media page today with Instant Web Celeb. That means more likes, more followers, and more engagement to all your social media pages. Use coupon code LVLX for a 10% discount.
All right, and let them know about our other sponsorships, MyUndies. MeUndies.
Club W. No. We don't have any other sponsors. Unfortunately, the Jesus Foundation went out of business in the past week. Apparently, our viewers couldn't keep them afloat, so now they're out of business. They had to liquidate their company. So there's that.
Fuck. All right, guys. But let's just get started on this Level X podcast. Hopefully, you guys are having an amazing Thursday. I know I am. What about you, Jesus?
Yeah,
how's school? How's the bitches treating you?
I mean, it's all good, man. It's school is school, and you just got to get through it, I think.
All right, like last week, guys, I did say that last week, unfortunately, I didn't have a book to talk about last week, so I felt really, really bad. Now, I was in the process of finishing a book, and I finished it like I promised, of course. So I am going to be discussing that book here today. What about you, Jesus? What do we have in store with you?
Like I said last week, guys, if you did listen last week, I said that I was going to be reading King, Warrior, Magician, Lover, rediscovering the archetypes of the mature masculine. So that's the book I'm going to be discussing this week.
Okay, so you did finish it?
Yeah, I did finish it.
Oh, wow, I didn't think you were going to finish it.
JIT.
Okay. Now, let's just get started, man. So my book that I am going to be discussing today is going to be Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus by John Gray, a 1992 book. Now, this book is a New York Times bestseller. You guys have already heard of it. If you guys don't, I know probably your girl has heard of it. Now, this podcast, if you are listening to it, this is going to be crucial knowledge or information if you are in a relationship or if you want to become a better man in your future relationships. Basically, anything revolving around relationships and the male and female spectrum. This podcast is specifically for you. I am going to be discussing the main points on the book so you guys don't have to read the book. Overall, this book was great, and I'm going to tell you the reasons why. But besides that, I don't know if you want to say anything before I dive straight into it, man.
About your book?
About your book as to what is it, who is it meant for, like the audience-wise.
My book, as you guys can tell from the title, is for men and rediscovering that masculine entity within them, because a lot of men today, they don't really have that masculinity, and that has to do with a lot of what they call here the patriarchy in today's modern society.
Okay, so let's just dive straight into it. Okay, guys, so Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus by John Gray. Now, the reason I got this book is because obviously it was in my reading list, and I haven't read a book in regards to, like the relationships, male and female type of relationships. Yeah. So I wanted to dive into that spectrum. I've read economics books. I read money books. I have read psychology books, but I wanted to dive into, that like sex kingdom type of thing when it comes to the sexes. Okay. So I got this book and I started reading it, man. And straight off the bat, I like when the books, like the first page, they already have you hooked. Okay. And I already know. And it's like when we're talking about the book, once we're reading it, it's good.
Oh man, this is
because we tell each other, like, damn, this book already starting off hot.
No, yeah, we definitely have those moments where you could kind of see that this book has a shit ton of potential, and you're just super excited.
Of course. Yeah, exactly. Now, this book, how it starts off is basically it starts off with the title, man. Basically, what's the difference between women and men? Men are from Mars, and then women are from Venus. But what exactly does that mean? Now, the book dives basically into what that means, and that is that men in Mars are more goal-oriented. So they're focused. They love completing or problem solving. They love doing all that shit, and they love innovating. So they're innovatives. Now, when it comes to Venus, the girls, now they're not even close to us. They don't even care about the latest shit or having bigger shit. They don't care about improvements or innovation. All they care about is basically love. They care about relationships. They care about communication. So they just like being around each other and basically talking to one another and expressing themselves.
Okay.
Now the men, they're just trying to build up their civilization, trying to get the latest technology involved in their buildings and their homes. So guys are goal oriented. This is important because this kind of tells you exactly the two different types of sexes. Now, before I dive into that, John Gray does say that just because you're a certain sex doesn't mean you fall exactly into that type of characteristics.
Yeah.
Sometimes it could be reversed. Sometimes you're a man, but you have those Venus type of characteristics. So it could go either way, but he's just generalization. Doing generalization because back in 1992, that's basically how you saw, man and woman. But nowadays, since we're a little bit more
open-minded,
I'm actually thinking more close-minded because just because he generalizes, I know that he has gotten some backlash in recent times because he's like, oh, well, he's generalizing, he's sexist and all this bullshit, which is gay. Yeah. Anyways, so basically that's the difference between men. And then eventually what happened is that the Martians, since, they're all about technology and advancements, they built this telescope that was able to see the Venus girls, the Venus planets, and they fell in love with these girls. So then they built a rocket ship so they can fly to Venus. And once they flew to Venus, they all fell in love and they respected each other's differences. Now, eventually, how the story goes is that both of these, the Martians and the Venus, I fucking don't even know how to say their fucking name, the Venus girls or whatever, they choose Earth to be their planet where they can basically grow together and coexist. So they went to Earth, but eventually through the evolutions and all this bullshit, they basically forgot where they came from, and that's why we are where we are today. More than 50% of marriages do end up in divorce and all this bad shit with relationships. Now I'm basically gonna give you like the 4 main points of this book, so I'm not gonna to go all throughout the entire shit, but the 4 main points to me. So the number 1 point, besides knowing your differences, and he calls it Mr. Fix-It and the Home Improvement Committee. Basically what this is that the number 1 complaint in relationships is basically when it comes to girls, and that girls usually complain about their partner not being a good listener or he's not listening. Now a lot of guys misinterpret this because basically as us guys, how we were raised or how having our Martians tendencies is that guys are problem solvers, man. So we love solving problems. We're innovative. We love doing that shit.
Yeah.
So when our partner comes with a problem, as Martians, we're like,
how can we fix it?
Yeah, like, so we see a girl having a problem or our either our wife, our spouse, or partner, she's complaining to us about a problem, and our first tendency, our first thing is, all right, how can I fix this? Because we're problem solvers, so we're like, oh, how can we fix this? The problem occurs is that the first thing that we do is provide unsolicited advice to the girl, and that's bad because girls don't want advice when they don't ask for it. Okay. So as the number 1 rule is that don't ever give unsolicited advice to your girl or to your partner.
And what does that mean, unsolicited? Does that mean
without asking? Like, if she doesn't ask for your advice of anything, don't give it to her.
So what are you supposed to do instead?
So girls, like, when they are like expressing themselves, basically all they want is empathy and you to listen to her. And by listening to her, you're not supposed to be like, oh, let's just say she comes home and she's complaining about work. Oh, everyone's treating me bad. Most men are gonna be like, oh, well, you shouldn't even work there. Don't even listen to them. Like, see, that's straight off. That's already going on the route of fucking
unsolicited advice.
Yeah, not only that, but that's going into an argument right there.
Oh,
because you're not listening to her. So basically, all the girl wants is empathy and for you to listen to her, which is crazy because it's kind of true. I feel because like in most books, you could read books, but if you're not applying this information, you're doing it wrong. And this book, throughout the things, it basically gives you exercises and shit so you can try out. And I tried it out for a while. I'm still doing it, but obviously since I have my male tendencies, it's hard for me sometimes to implement them. But when I do implement them, or I remember,
you see results.
Yeah, I see that the women in my life, you know, they're kind of giving me, all right, like kind of like a thumbs up type of shit.
Oh shit! All right.
So men don't listen. So that's a number one thing. Girls just want empathy for you to listen to her. So moving on from there, on the guy side of things is that guys just want to be accepted. So the guys complain about girls is that, oh, she's always trying to change me. Why is she trying to do this? Why is she trying to change me? So guys, at the end of the day, they just want acceptance. And by acceptance, you know, they just want to show that they're competent. So when a girl basically criticizes you or tries to sometimes change you, or like tries to give you like that, again, unsolicited advice, fuck, that word's fucking me up. Unsolicited advice to you,
yeah, then
the guy basically subconsciously he's telling himself, oh, she doesn't think I'm capable of doing that, or I'm not competent. Like, you know, it hits his ego. And us, at deep down, we just want to be accepted for who we are, and basically to show that, oh, okay, well, I can lead, I can be competent, you know, and all this shit.
So does the book say how that women are supposed to change that, like not give unsolicited advice?
Yeah, exactly. Like, just accept. Like, I think the book goes how one day, I think John was trying to, I think he had like a conference, or he had like he had to catch a flight, and if his wife didn't listen to the book, she would be like, hey, don't forget your ticket. Hey, don't do this because you're gonna be late. Like, that's gonna basically make John feel bad, because he's like, oh, well, you don't trust that I can
make it there on time?
Yeah, and all this shit. So basically what she did is that he got his tickets, he got there, but I think he forgot something. But instead of her complaining to him, saying like, oh, I told you so, and all this bullshit, she just accepted, like, basically kind of encouraging him, not necessarily encouraging him, but basically empathize, I guess you can say, with him, like not necessarily it's okay, fuck, I forgot what she said, but basically
like everyone makes mistakes kind of thing.
More like, I don't know, I forgot what exactly she said, because basically I just read from a male's perspective, so I only cared about my perspective.
Oh, okay.
But I do know that the girl's supposed to accept a guy and not necessarily give him like that
crap,
type. Right? Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
But read the book, guys. I'm gonna recommend it right now. Just read the book. A lot of knowledge in there. Lesson number 2. Now this one's important because I think I see it all the time, and I can say, you know, from experience that this shit does happen. Even if you're not in a relationship, you're gonna run into these type of things. And I don't know if so far what I've said, you ran into it like before when you were in relationships.
I'm sure I have, but I can't think of a specific memory.
All right. It says lesson 2: men go to their caves and women talk. Now, what does this mean? It means that, now this is talking about how the different sexes deal with stress and with being overwhelmed with a lot of shit. Mm-hmm. Now, men go to caves is that basically when they're under a lot of stress, guys like to
distance themselves,
kind of like distance themselves, withdraw themselves, and they like being focused. So they're problem solvers. So they either focus on that, trying to solve that problem of stress. Now if they can't solve the problem, they like getting focused on a different task to get away from that problem.
Yeah.
So they either can play video games or watch TV or read the newspaper. They like to withdraw themselves from the problem if they can't fix it right then and there, and then after that come back and try to fix the problem. Mm-hmm. But they like
solitude.
They like solving the problems by themselves.
Yeah.
Now, because back in Martian land or whatever, back in Mars, the only time a Martian went to another Martian is because with the problem is to ask for help. So when the Martian doesn't go, or us as guys, when you don't go to your other partner, that basically means that, oh, hey, I don't need your help, kind of thing. Like, I can do it by myself. Okay. Now women, on the other hand, when they're overwhelmed, they like to talk about it. They like to be emotionally attached to the situation. So what she basically wants, instead of being solitude, she wants to express herself before she solves a problem. So she likes to express herself, kind of complain about the situation type of thing. That's what girls like, because back in Venus, that's what they did. Is like the girl didn't have to tell the guy, or didn't have to tell the other Venus girl, hey, I'm having a problem. Intuitively, they basically knew that girl needed help or whatever.
Okay.
So that's basically it in regards to that lesson. So girls know that basically when your man gets withdrawn, he's basically just trying to go to his cave, and if you try more trying to go into that cave when
he's gonna resent you.
Yeah, he's gonna resent. He's gonna basically cause more arguments. So just wait until he comes back, and that's when you know, okay, you're good.
And then guys just listen to your girl when she wants to vent.
Yeah, and now there's sometimes times where the guy has to go to his cave, and you as a girl needs to talk about a problem or whatever. Right then and there, he's not. It's best to like leave him alone. Like, okay, if he goes into his cave, basically you have to wait until he gets out. So basically, what the book says is that girls should have friends or have other acquaintances where they can express themselves too. So when the guy comes back, she can actually express himself when he's ready.
Okay.
Now the last 2 lessons or whatever, men are like rubber band and women are like waves. Now what this means is that men have this tendency to get close in a relationship, then pull away. So once they get close, really close, they like pulling away and then coming back. Now the issue is that with women is that since they don't understand that guys are like rubber bands, they're always trying to have the guy super close to them no matter what.
Yeah.
So then when the guy needs to pull away and he can't, he becomes really passive, resentment. He grows resentment towards his wife or his girlfriend, because as guys you need to pull away from getting too close.
Otherwise they'll feel constrained.
Yeah, but I don't know exactly as to why we are like rubber bands. He doesn't go into depth for that, but he says that it's necessary as a man that all guys are like this, that they need to pull away. So by pulling away, it's like they need to just get away from it. They need their own space.
Oh, okay.
As guys. So, you know, I don't know, like maybe they get super close and they need to pull away, or maybe like go to some retreat or go with their boys somewhere, go into the woods.
Yeah.
Or some shit, and then after like missing their girl, they come back and they get close again. Now women are like waves, so basically their self-esteem rises and falls like a wave. So sometimes girls are like really like confident, they're really happy, and all of a sudden like the relationship is great, and all of a sudden it fucking spikes down or whatever, and the guy's like, what the fuck, like what did I do? Like,
yeah,
he thinks the problem is with him, but just like he is like a rubber band, she is like a wave. So her self-esteem is gonna fall and rise. Nothing you could do about it. But basically, because you know that it's a wave, you know that it's not your fault. It's basically just her natural rhythm.
Did it say how to deal with like women when they their emotions, how to deal with that rise and fall?
It does, but all I know from it is that, again, don't give unsolicited advice.
Okay.
All right. Now the last two, I'll probably combine them, but yeah, I'll probably combine them a little bit or just separate them. Fuck it, because I'm almost done. Lesson 4 is basically the point system, and this is where the guys get this shit wrong all the time. Is that, and girls too, I guess you can say. As us guys, coming from Mars, we love the big shit. We love innovating. We love the big shit. You know, like all the big presents. We love to create the best. You know. So what that means is that when it comes to gift giving in a relationship, guys are not exactly like girls, or they're not even close to girls. So girls, how they rate their partner is that us guys, we love fucking working hard so we can give our wife or our girlfriend or something like a big gift.
Yeah.
You know, we like working for the big shit.
Yeah.
So when we work hard and hard and hard, we give the girl a big gift. I don't know, maybe instead of like a rose, it's like a necklace or, you know, a fucking car, let's just say.
Yeah.
And then we're like, damn, I worked hella hard for this big gift. So you would think she would rate that higher than if you would give her just one rose or whatever. But in her eyes, she doesn't rate it differently. She rates it the same.
Oh shit.
So one rose is the same thing as if you're getting her like a fucking car
or a
purse, or a purse in her eyes. So that's 1 point. But as guys, if it was the opposite, like if she gives us a car compared to, like, let's just say
a watch
or something, we'll rate the watch like, I don't know, like 2, but like a car like fucking 50 points or some shit.
Yeah.
But girls, she rates it 1 each. So basically, as guys, when we give her, like, let's just say a purse or a car compared to one rose, and she rates them the same, then you get all pissed off. You're like, because then she's mad because you spend like 6 months giving her a purse, one thing,
when you could have, when she was giving
you like multiple things or whatever, different things. So in her eyes, she's like, like I'm giving him more than what I'm receiving. So, and the thing is that in her eyes, she keeps track of it. So in Mars, let's just say, as two guys, right? Like if I'm giving you more shit, and I see that you're not giving me like the same equal shit, I stop giving you.
Yeah.
But girls aren't like that. Girls, even if you don't give them back, they still keep on giving because they're keeping track of it. So
Same.
in the guy's head, they're like, she keeps on giving me shit, so that means we're even. Because you're like, well, she wouldn't be giving me shit if we weren't even.
Wait, what? What do you mean she wouldn't keep giving me shit if we were even?
No,
so
you
meaning
aren't.
that, wait, what? Like,
Yeah.
I don't get it. We are even, so she keeps giving me shit?
So that's in your, it's like, let's just say you're only giving her like 2 gifts a month, but
Yeah.
she's giving you 5.
Okay.
All right. Now, back in Martian land, if we weren't even, like, let's just say you gave me only 2 gifts and I'm giving you 5, because I'm a guy, I'm like, oh, well, this guy's not giving me the same amount, or it's not fair that I'm giving him 5 and he's giving me
Right.
2. So I'm gonna start giving you shit
Okay.
until or until we're actually even, until you're giving me more gifts and we're even.
Okay.
But in girl land, or the girls, even if you guys aren't even, she keep on giving you. But since you're still stuck in that Martian mentality, you're like, oh, well, she keeps on giving me this shit. That means we're even. Like, that means we must be even.
Oh, okay, that makes more sense. Okay.
You get it?
Yeah, that makes sense. So since the gifts don't stop coming, you assume that you guys are on good terms, like it's all even.
Yeah, because you're like, well, we must be equal in giving our gifts.
Yeah, until the gifts stop coming, then you're like, all right, well, we're equal now. I have to give again or some shit. Like
Yeah,
that.
exactly. Because you're like, oh, that means she's not giving me anything. That means
It's time for me to start giving.
yeah, exactly.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah.
So then the girl becomes resentful towards the guys because she's continuing to give, but she's not receiving the same amount of
And
shit
she's
back.
keeping track of that.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
Okay.
So then she's like, well, and because this guy's a doctor in marriage counseling and all this shit, so he says that he always sees couples like being like, well, I've already given more, like too much in this relationship, and I haven't seen nothing back and all this, right?
Yeah.
So what he says about this is that the little things count no matter what. Like, so giving your girl like 2 hugs, a compliment, is the same thing as if you're buying her like a watch or some shit.
This is cool because you always hear that, it's the little things that matter. Even like, I'm sure everyone has heard that in the past relationships where the girl's like, oh yeah, well, it's the little things, and then you're like, okay, well, whatever, like you kind of brush it off. But now kind of like, is it cool reading this from a book because it kind of gives you an explanation as to how that phrase came about? Because now that I kind of see an explanation as to why little things do matter, it makes a lot more sense. And I guess now it's further ingrained in my head than it was before.
Oh yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, this was definitely eye opener for me because, like, I'm not in a current relationship, but I've been in relationships before, and this was before I, started reading books about like all this shit. So just reading this, I know that in any future relationships or whatever, I'm definitely gonna go into that relationship knowing way more on what to do right and shit.
Yeah. So continue.
All right. So that's the point system. So for all guys, the small shit does matter, like to the girl.
Yeah.
All right. So lesson 5, which is the last lesson on this book, is speaking different languages. So basically, this is where guys complain a lot about. Basically, girls are not literal creatures, so they don't speak literally on what the problem is. So they might say, "Man, you don't love me anymore," and us as guys take that as an attack, because we're like, we take it kind of literally, but that's a problem, is that girls are not necessarily the same speakers as us, so we have different meanings for different words. And you might think that's crazy, but that's the reality of things, is that even though we speak kind of like the same language, deep down our languages are different. So girls are kind of, what the book says is that girls are like poets, so they like using metaphors a lot, they like using generalizations a lot. So when a girl kind of says, oh, you don't love me, deep down you have to, as a guy, you have to start thinking, rather than her speaking literally, you have to be asking yourself, all right, well, what's the underlying theme? Like, what's the underlying issue here? So basically, if a girl's saying, "Oh, well, you don't love me," she's not necessarily saying that you don't love her, but maybe that she doesn't feel love at that moment. So you have to basically kind of show like empathy, caring towards her, reassurance, all that shit. And basically that's it. That's basically the 5 main points that I got from this book. Overall, I did rate this book. I think I rated it like a solid 8. But I know that, like I said, John Gray in this book have gotten a lot of flag. Like some of the reviews are bad because it is like at the end of the day like a 1992 book. So a lot of shit has changed. But you know that doesn't mean that the book has no value to it. Like some of the shit, yeah, you're like, well, I don't agree with that. But for most of the part, I agreed with most of the book, and it definitely opened my eyes when it comes to like relationships and what it means to basically be a good partner in a relationship.
And that's tight, man. Coming from like an outsider, someone who was in past relationships but isn't one anymore, I know how hard it can be to like sometimes implement all this knowledge into a relationship, because relationships, they're not easy, man. They're like a lot of hard work, especially like when in those rocky times where, you know, frustrations come about, there's like arguments, so it's really hard to implement all this like positivity into your relationship. Man, that's what it's all about. It's all about putting effort. I know there's some times where I was in a relationship and it was like, for example, I read a book and I was like, oh shit, I can implement this like directly into my relationship. Well, I implemented it for a week and then it never came about again. Like I just completely dropped it. And sometimes it's just hard to kind of like sustain that because relationships do get kind of bumpy at times.
Yeah.
I think it's those times when you have to put the most effort into actually like trying to be a good partner.
Yeah, and then this book, a lot of it also says, you know, it might be hard to implement this, but you have to give it, you know, you have to put effort into it. Like if this shit does matter to you, then you're gonna find a way to actually implement it. Now, a lot of people are like, man, that's just too much hard work or whatever. But at the end of the day, it's a skill at the end of the day as well, you know.
Yeah.
Becoming a good listener, becoming a good partner, all that shit is a skill at the end of the day. So just like any other skill that you learned before, it does take time to basically become at least decent at that skill. So you just have to keep practicing day in, day out. Eventually it becomes like kind of like a rhythm. It becomes kind of like a habit, and you start implementing without actually thinking that you're doing anything special. And then I do know that if you implement this shit or this all this knowledge, the girl does appreciate you more, and it becomes more of a loving relationship rather than a take until there's nothing there. So overall, definitely recommend it, guys. Remember, men are from Mars, women are from Venus. Even if from all this you weren't listening, as long as you know that the sexes are basically from different planets, that's one of the biggest takeaways. So you can basically know, like, even when you're arguing, you know that, all right, change your perspective on what you guys are arguing about and try to see it through her eyes.
Yeah.
So you can understand it. Because if you understand that, at least that, okay, well, she's seeing it differently because she is from somewhere else, from a different planet, then you become more accepting of her, or of her point of view.
Yeah. All right, man. Well, that was a little long, but damn, definitely a lot of value in that review, man. I know I didn't read the book, but I just felt like I fucking came from a goddamn seminar right here.
Yeah, exactly. And you know, I usually don't do like fucking long ass reviews,
but this one was.
But I think this was
pivotal, man. I
think it was necessary.
This shit's fucking applicable. This is definitely something that you would want to read if you're like in a relationship right now where, you know, shit could be better. You just don't know how to do it.
Exactly. But as a guy that's not in a relationship, I'm excited about your review, man. Let us know what the book is again and by who.
King, Warrior, Magician, Lover. It's by Robert Moore and Douglas Gillett.
Okay.
Definitely recommend it. 8 out of 10.
Ooh.
Go pick it up, guys.
Okay. Let us know what it's more about, man.
That's a review right there, man.
I want the key points. I want the good shit.
All right, man. Well, I'm not gonna give.
Please.
I'm not. You know me, guys. I go into depth on all these books. I go ahead and talk for like half an hour straight.
You do.
But this time I'm gonna keep it short because I actually want you guys to go ahead and read this. I don't want you guys to just feel like I told you everything about it. So the book is actually split into 2 parts, man.
Okay.
It goes in. Well, first let me set the layout or the groundwork for the book. Now the book is basically meant, like I said, for males out there. It says how throughout history there's always been these rituals, basically these ways for men to transition from boys to like adulthood. So there was like these rituals where you would take your, at least like in the olden days, you would take your boys to hunt, and once you got done with the hunt, like the boy killed a boar or something, that was this transition from boyhood to manhood. It goes into all these rituals how they used to have them back in the old days, but eventually once modern civilization came about, all those rituals kind of stopped. We saw that as kind of, basically we saw that as like prehistoric. Like we saw that as like not necessary anymore, because we had all this new stuff like technology. Was like, oh well, we don't need rituals anymore, we don't really believe in that anymore.
Okay.
So we kind of saw that as like the old ways to do stuff. Well, now that was like a bad thing, because now like in today's society, you have the rise of feminism and all this stuff, and kind of boys or men lost their way. And it's because of the patriarchy, man. You see history and you see all these evil men, right? Like kings who were abusive to their wives, and men who kind of were either cowardly or they were just tyrannical. So men kind of got a lot of bad flack for that kind of stuff. So that's why feminism came about. Feminists were saying how, we're tired of being abused by these evil men. So men got kind of this bad image where they were like abusive, they were selfish, they were greedy. So in that way, like all these rituals to manhood stopped, and since like this bad image got put on men, men kind of saw themselves as like, oh, we're not good in nature. So now, since you have this bad image about being a man, you have kind of just men who don't really know who to turn to for like guidance or anything like that. So you have all these, like, they say, well, men still consider themselves men, right? They're like, oh well, when I turn like 18 or whatever, I become a man. But that's not really the case, because they're still immature in a way. There's still men out there who are either cowardly, who are quote unquote lost. Like they don't really know who they are, but at the same time they don't know who to turn to for guidance.
Yeah, exactly.
So as boys, since we don't really have older males, or at least real men, who can teach us anything or guide us, transition us from being boys to men, we turn to like these other men who are not really men themselves. They're still immature. For example, like we might see our father, but our father might be an alcoholic or something. So we pick up bad tendencies, or we might not even have a father in our lives. So we turn to like our neighborhood adults, and those neighborhood adults might be like gang members or something. And no shots fired to any gangsters out there, but even then, like, violence is never the answer to anything at the same time.
All right.
So we have these bad role models in our lives, and we have all these immature men that we kind of view as like our guidance or in a way. So we grow up also to be kind of immature men ourselves. We don't really fully grow into what an ideal man should be. So there's these archetypes that they describe as child. So they describe child as having 4 different archetypes. There's the divine child, the hero, the Oedipal child, and the precious child. Like I said, guys, I'm not going to go in depth, but those are like the 4 basic archetypes that we grow up with. And as we grow older, we're supposed to develop into the warrior, the king, the magician, and the lover. So those are the ones I'm actually focused on. So growing up, we're supposed to develop into the king, the warrior, the magician, the lover, and they all have their their different characteristics. They all have their different strengths and weaknesses. But obviously the ideal is to be the king. So the king is kind of like the center of the puzzle, and then the other, it like grabs from the warrior, the magician, the lover to become like the ideal man. And that should all be our goal, like as men, to be the king who is also the warrior and the magician and the lover. So to start things off, like, what is a king? You could take it in a literal sense, like the king of his
kingdom,
of his town or whatever, or you can take it like being the father of your household. You're the king. You're the one that offers guidance to the family. You're the one that kind of has the order, who dictates, like leads, who dictates, this is how we're going to run this household. This is how we can become a good family. But he's also the one who kind of empowers his little kingdom. He gives guidance to his children. He gives his blessing to his children. He kind of like inspires them, tells them, like, this is what you should do. This is
already sounds
kind of
badass.
like a leader.
It sounds badass.
You should aspire to be the king, man, because being like a true king, you're kind of like the person that your kingdom looks up to. Like, you're the one who navigates the road and stuff like that. So that's what the king is, but for every archetype, there's its shadow form. So they call them the shadow forms. You're either really, and you should kind of, so they set it up as in a triangle where if you're like the prodigal king, you're kind of like right in the center, but you can either fall really leftward, which is the active king, or the active, whatever, the active archetype, they call it active or passive, or you can fall like to the right side, and that's like the passive role of the archetype. So in this case, you have the king, but you also have to the left side the active one. You have the tyrant, but then to the right side, the passive, you have the weakling. So the shadow forms that are in the archetype are going to be really negative for their own reasons. For the king, for example, you have the tyrant. So if you fall to the left side, the active side of the king, you become tyrannical, you become mad with power in a way, and you start like not leading your kingdom in the right direction. So the book is kind of set up like that. It breaks down the archetype, but then it breaks down its shadow form. And it's saying how a lot of times in today's society, since like I said, we don't have any good role models, we grow up to be kind of these shadow forms instead of like the ideal archetype. Throughout history, man, you've seen tyrants like Hitler or like freaking Alexander the Great. Yeah, they were.
Alexander the Great was a tyrant?
Yeah, man, he became tyrannical. That's why he died at the end.
I don't know.
Well, I'm assuming just from like my little vague amount of history that I know Alexander the Great.
What are the commenters like? Oh, you're wrong.
No, well, I mean, everyone knows about the fall of Rome. So how Rome was taking over the world, and then it just got destroyed. But anyways, I'm sure Alexander the Great also became a tyrannical leader. Anyways, so that's kind of what the book goes into. Just it can navigate you through all these archetypes. It's providing a layout for you to kind of see, all right, look, this is how I fall in this archetype, but you can also kind of judge yourself based on, whether I fall on the passive side or the active side, and you kind of get to look into yourself and see, well, these are my strengths, these are my weaknesses, this is what I can improve on. So it's a little layout for you to kind of judge yourself.
But it doesn't tell you.
Based on the masculine psyche.
It doesn't like talk about how to become those.
It doesn't really know, man. It just talks about, well, these are the archetypes. And I know it kind of sucks. I kind of wanted it to go deep, like, this is how you can work on yourself. But I think that's part of the challenge, man. That's part of reading the book and really like dissecting it to see. Okay. Well, because it does give examples like, this is how a man, like this is how a king works, and and you're supposed to kind of take from that, be like, well, I can start doing that, or I'm not doing that right now. Like maybe I can start acting like this, and therefore access the true power of the king or whatever.
Right. So what about the lover, man? That's it looks like that would be cool.
The lover is actually
talk about the other ones real quick, just briefly.
The warrior, that's actually my favorite one, because I know you've read a lot of war books. I know you're into like that warrior because you read, what is it called, the Guerrilla Mindset. And
I read Guerrilla Mindset, The Art of War. And I definitely had briefly encounters with like the Spartan lifestyle and shit like that.
Man, is it hot in this room or what? Yeah. So the warrior, man, that was actually my favorite one, because I know I could relate to that, man, because I think mostly what the warrior has to, or at least the way it relates to me most, is procrastination. Yeah. A warrior is decisive. A warrior is a go-getter. A warrior has a lot of spirit, a lot of drive, but he also has a lot of discipline. He has a lot of patience. Shit. The warrior's badass, dude. Like he's the one.
He sounds badass.
He's the one who's gonna go get shit done, and he's gonna do the shit that needs to be done. So it says the warrior isn't really he's not like a crazed animal or anything like that. Like someone malicious. He's only vicious when he has to be. For example, you would see like a soldier, right? A soldier is a warrior in a way, but a soldier only. I'm referring to like U.S. like U.S. soldiers. They're killers, right? But they're only killers for kind of problems that need to be dealt with, like communism.
Once they're in war.
Yeah, once they're in war, like they're combating communism. They're like World War II. They combated Hitler, like the fucking Nazis. So they take down the evil. Like they're only vicious when they need to conquer like evil or some shit like that. Okay. So they're actually really good at heart. But obviously you have the shadow forms of the warrior, which it describes here as the sadist or the masochist. They're either too vicious, like they're too malicious, where they want to hurt other people and they have bad intents, or the passive role will be where they actually just want to like hurt themselves and they're self-destructive and shit like that.
All right.
So that's like the warrior. I mean, obviously, not everyone's gonna be perfect, but I can definitely see like good characteristics of the warrior in me, but I also know I have bad characteristics. So this is what the book is about, man. Like I said before, it's all about analyzing yourself and seeing
reflection
where you fall on the spectrum of like the passive or active. And it's cool, man, because you get to kind of like you said, reflect on yourself and see how you can improve and where if either you can shift left or you can shift right more. Moving on to the magician.
What about this guy?
The magician is cool, man, because the magician, they describe it as someone who's very knowledgeable, but it's someone who is connected to the spiritual world.
Oh, wow.
So it's someone who is very wise, reads a lot, but also someone who...
Like a Buddha or what?
Yeah, man, they just... Anything like Buddha, like freaking Jesus, like... They even go ahead and like talk about like people who are part of the occult and shit like that.
Okay.
So it actually gave me a new perspective on like the occult or whatever. I'm not like saying I'm gonna go join a cult and shit, but they... like people in the occult, they do have like connection to like an outside realm that's not like within our dimension and shit. You kind of have to stretch your mind a little bit for that chapter, because if you don't kind of believe in that stuff, you're like, well, this is fucking like crazy. This is
stupid or whatever.
Not stupid, but it's just too out there in a way.
Okay.
Like it's hard to stretch your mind that far if you're kind of like conservative. But since I'm just like whatever, like I'll take it for whatever it is. I'll take it at face value in a way. Like I can still appreciate what they were trying to say.
Okay.
So yeah, the magician, someone who is very wise, but also someone who actually is willing to share their knowledge, like just to better the world in a way. You have to kind of be very patient to be a magician. Like it's not something that you can automatically be, because it does take practice and it does take a lot of time for you to kind of like master anything in that way. So a lot of people want to go ahead and, well, it almost relates to that book, Mastery. Like, a lot of people want to go ahead and be masters immediately, but to become a true magician, it takes years and it takes a lot of practice. But anyways, like I said, a magician is super wise, and he's willing to share his knowledge with other people in order to improve the people around him, but also to improve the world.
All right. And what are the shadow forms of that, though?
The shadow forms of the magician, and I actually got to read my book because I can't remember everything specifically, but the magician, the shadow forms are either the detached manipulator or the denying innocent one. The detached manipulator being a person who does have a lot of knowledge, but he uses that knowledge and his wisdom as a way to kind of manipulate others. He sees himself as better than other people, and he says, oh, well, all these people are inferior to me in a way.
Damn.
So he becomes really egotistical.
Yeah.
The other form of it, the passive role, is the denying innocent one. So it's someone who is malicious at heart, but he thinks that since he's so knowledgeable, like he acts innocent in a way. Dude, this was perfect because it reminded me of, like, let's say for example, you first get into self-development, right?
Yeah.
You're like, oh, well, I'm into self-development, like I can't do no wrong. I'm over here trying to improve myself. But you're kind of just lying to yourself, because even though you might be like into self-development and all this bullshit, you might be like a fucking horrible person. Like you might be abusive, and I know that's happened to me before too in the past, man. With my relationships, I would just like I would be fucking up in different ways, but in my mind I was like, oh, well, I'm into self-development, like I'm not doing anything wrong, like I'm over here just trying to improve myself. Like I would be playing this little innocent role, but deep down inside, or maybe I wasn't even like aware of it, but I guess deep down inside I knew I was kind of like doing bad shit, but I would kind of like lie to myself. And that's what the denying innocent one, you know, it's clearly in the title itself. You deny that you're evil, and you kind of just play this innocent role because you're like, oh, well, I'm so wise, I'm just over here trying to help the world or whatever. So you're just kind of lying to yourself, and you're lying to other people, even though you're kind of just malicious at heart.
Yeah.
So that definitely was a big one for me, man.
So you're saying that your archetype was a magician?
I think I related to the magician more than anything else, only because I'm reading so much. But man, if you're not really applying the knowledge that you're reading, you can kind of
go into that realm.
Yeah,
into that shadow.
Yeah, you can go into that shadow form. But lastly, it's the lover. The lover, obviously, it is what it sounds like. You kind of just love art. You love other people. You kind of just open your heart to the world, and you see beauty in everything. Pretty much. But mostly it is sensual. You know, you love, if you're a heterosexual, you love the woman, you love the woman body, you love sex.
Yeah.
And you're not limiting that to like one partner either. You can either be in a monogamous relationship, but I think they call it polygamous or whatever. That's when you have like multiple partners. So you're just really sensual. You're sexually open, but you also take it in like you love art. You love anything that has to deal with beauty.
Okay.
So, like for example, it mentioned like a sunset. Like a lover appreciates like sunsets. It appreciates the beauty in a sunset, like the colors and everything. So that's pretty much what.
So a man, because a lot of like, let's say manly men or whatever back then, they were like criticize shit like that, like, oh, well, you're into like spiritual shit. Oh, that's lame. Oh, you're into like art, man, that's gay or some shit like that.
No,
but you're saying some actual men can become like that type.
Well, that's what the book talks about, man. It says how part of being a magician is kind of like detaching yourself from your emotions, detaching your ego.
Is that with like all archetypes, like the lover as well?
Well, that's the thing. You got to use all the archetypes when necessary. So one big part of being a magician is knowing when to use certain aspects of each archetype. So you detach yourself and you kind of like see the layout and see, oh, well, this is how I can use the lover for this instance, or this is how I can use the warrior for this instance. But the lover, like I said, man, you're not supposed to use it all the time. You're only supposed to use it when required. Otherwise, you'll fall into one of the shadow forms, which is the addicted lover. You're too sensual. You're too touchy. Like you don't know your boundaries in a way.
Oh shit.
So yeah, man. So obviously like that can
Tiger Woods.
Yeah, in a way, it can become a real problem when you don't know how to like control your own urges and stuff like that.
Fuck.
But the
sounds like me right now.
Yeah, but the passive role will be like the impotent lover, the man who can't really like show his feelings, express his feelings, which a lot of guys do suffer with. I think they're so invested into their work per se that they don't allow themselves time to like feel pleasure, so they lose that ability So they're having sex but they can't get it up because their mind is not in it. Like their mind is somewhere else, which actually brings me up to like another point of the shadow warrior, is that a lot of the guys these days are too invested into like their work that they forget to like focus on like their relationships and stuff. So their relationships like suffer because they're so invested into doing their tasks. Because the warrior, he has a purpose and he's always trying to go and fulfill that purpose, but that causes his relationships to suffer. But anyways, man, like I said, that's the point of this book, to really give you a layout as to, whether you're swinging to left or swinging to right. It gives you time to kind of evaluate yourself and see where you are on the spectrum of each archetype. Like I said, the ideal is to be the king, but also to utilize the warrior, the magician, and the lover whenever required. So lastly, I know you said, oh, well, the book doesn't show you how to kind of like access these. Well, it doesn't really go into depth, but there is like the conclusion of the book, which is like maybe 10 pages. It does give you these little techniques where you can actually go ahead and look within yourself to see how you can unleash each archetype. So it gives you little practices that you can do to actually like bring out the archetypes when you need them. And one of the ones that I actually thought was cool was admiring other men. So it says whenever you're feeling like you might be lacking in the king aspect or maybe the magician aspect, you should read up on other men, like great men. For example, a king, you can read up on Abraham Lincoln, a great king. Maybe George Washington. I don't think it mentioned George by name, but I know he was a great leader in his day also. So read up on these other great men. You can see the way they acted, the way they implemented all their knowledge, man, and that can also be really key to kind of unlocking your own potential or your own king. So that's my book. Like I said, I actually was honest in my rating. I do give it an 8 out of 10. Man, I definitely recommend this, bro. I know for sure this is a book that I'm gonna utilize very, very often because I think it was great, and I definitely saw some deficiencies in myself that I can improve upon. So I hope that you guys can do the same. We're actually running out of time here. We do apologize. I know we got carried away with these with these book reviews, guys. These two books that we just talked about,
bunch of knowledge today, man. Just a bunch of knowledge.
These are books that you definitely need to have in your library. I know, like David said, there's been a lot of flack recently for men. You're either being too emotional or you get called out for shit, just, or even like, I know reading sometimes gets a bad flack. You're a fucking nerd or something, like, as in reading is like fucking stupid or something. Like, guys, reading can provide you so much knowledge, but at the same time, reading can only do so much, because at the end of the day, you got to implement all the knowledge. So if you're interested in the books we talked about today, definitely go pick them up. We always link the books on our Twitter account, LevelXPodcast on Twitter. Go check them out, guys. I mean, they might be like $10 each, and you might be saying, well, fuck, like, I can do something else with those $10. But trust me, guys, the knowledge in here the knowledge you get from books, it multiplies tenfold once you implement it, man. It'll change your life forever.
Like the book I'm reading that hopefully I'll be discussing next week. If not, then in 2 weeks. But I'm for sure discussing it next week. Man, that book is, I spent like, I don't know, like $7 buying it. But man, like, I can already see myself using the shit that I'm reading about to make myself like 10 times that amount of money. But at the end of the day, like, it shouldn't necessarily be about money. It's about investing in yourself. Like, when you can, like, a lot of people our age, all the people that are listening to this and shit, like, a lot of people our age, or even older than us, they like investing into material ass shit. And at the end of the day, like, that's not gonna get you to where your goals are in life and all this shit. And maybe if you are an older listener and you're like, man, well, I'm already too old, like, I don't want to read and all this shit. There's actually a chapter in the book that I'm reading where it talks about all these people that did all this incredible shit, like, when they were in their like 60s and 70s, bro.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's never too late to,
invest in yourself.
Invest in yourself, man.
And there's a price for the books, but there's not a price from like the knowledge you read, because the knowledge that you read can help your relationships. It can help your deficiencies as a person. It can give you resources that were unattainable otherwise, man.
And it's crazy because, like how you were saying about how nowadays, like, the modern guy, they don't have like the right role models. Right. Well, reading books from these great people, that could be like your role model or your mentor that you need. All these authors are like, either, like in my case, like doctors in their specific field, or in your case, they're like actual manly men that know their shit, and that can help you. That could be your mentor that you never had, or you can never have.
Exactly, man. And that's what the book says. We're missing so much, because a lot of the times, us as a gender, what we do sometimes is we blame the other gender for deficiencies in our own character. For example, us as men, we might blame other women. Oh, well, they're too emotional. They just don't get it. They don't get how much hard work I'm putting into this. But these books kind of help you realize, well, maybe it's not even like their problem. Those problems are within ourselves, that we're not understanding enough. We're not good listeners. So, man, it's just cool that you kind of just get this other perspective, and you really get to see an outside view on how things really are.
Yeah, man. I definitely agree with you, and that, sometimes you don't have enough money to, take like seminars or workshops or do all this crazy shit, but you sometimes, all it takes is like $5 to order a book, from Amazon, or going to like a thrift store and finding these books. But definitely, guys, follow us on our Twitter account, LevelXPodcast. We always post like knowledgeable shit, as well as links to all the books that we discussed here and are reading. Overall, like Jesus said, we are running out of time. We don't want to expand this too long. So I hope you guys enjoyed this. We're actually going to talk about more stuff, but we'll talk about more cooler shit next week as well.
Yeah, and the stuff that we didn't talk about, we'll post the links on our LevelX.
Yeah, the main thing is that we want you guys to get the knowledge that we're reading about, that we're implementing in our life. And I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. But shout out to our sponsors as well. Instant Web Celeb. Go follow them on their Instagram. Go like their Facebook. And also, guys, click that like button if you're watching this on YouTube. Click that heart button if you're hearing this or listening to this on SoundCloud. And then also, if you are on iTunes, please give us that review. Much appreciated. Anything else before we're out of here?
Not really, man. One more time, your book, David, so the people don't forget.
Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus, from Dr. John Gray. As well, I am going to link the links down below, as well as on our Twitter account. You?
King Warrior, Magician Lover by Robert Moore. Douglas Gillette. Last thought, go read, man. Go read.
Yeah, go read, man. Even if it's not like a huge book like mine, I know that your book was like less than 100 pages.
It was 150.
150. Mine is, more than 300 pages or close to 300. So if you guys don't have enough time to read like a 300-page book, there's this one. There's The Alchemist that you read like last week, 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, and there's that book, The Art of Stillness. That one was valuable and only 80 pages.
Yeah, so there's a bunch of knowledge and different types of reading levels that you can still attain knowledge from. But yeah, man, if you are listening, thank you guys so much for listening. We will see you guys next week.